Hey,
Okay.
I'm Dr. Cindy Dupuy. I have a PhD in learning disabilities. I do diagnostic assessment, advocacy, and intervention.
My name
I'm
is
also
Kim
an adult with
Sharman.
dyslexia and dysgraphia.
Oh, sorry. Kim
That's okay.
Sharman, teach dyslexia, dysgraphia, ADHD, and I have ADHD.
Hi, I'm Tiffany, and I also teach kids with dyslexia, dysgraphia, and ADHD, and I'm an adult with ADHD as well.
Okay, so we're going to do a video on how do we test encoding. Now, Kim, what's the difference between encoding and decoding?
I think you're just going to have to explain that.
Okay, so decoding is I see an unfamiliar word. How do I break it down to sound it out and blend it back together? Encoding is the reverse process. I hear a word. How do I represent those sounds on the page so that somebody else who's never seen it before can then read it? So you decode when you read a book, you encode when you write an essay on that book.
Hmm.
You decode when you read signs, you encode when you draft an email.
What about when you're listening to a lecture? What's that called?
So if you're taking notes, you're encoding because you're writing down what you heard. Now, when you watch me encode, you will see 9 gazillion spelling errors and nobody will be able to read my handwriting.
So that is one of the huge things we deal with, kids having
Yeah.
difficulty with encoding.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. I will send notes to there's a lawyer that I work with frequently, and she's like, I'd love to see your notes. And then she's like, but you have to transcribe them because I can't read yours. Anyway, okay, so the really interesting piece is we do spelling tests. So all academic batteries tend to have a spelling subtest on it. But Kim and Tiffany, do you think that there is a structure to how they do the spelling words?
In the batteries,
Yes.
I hope so.
I well, they're going to test the different types of vowel sounds and the combination of consonants.
So you would think that they would do it in a really, really structured way, but they tend to go with vocabulary that is appropriate and then they progress by grade.
For that grade level. Oh, that's weird. Okay, yeah.
Okay. And so then they intertwine in there words that are not phonetically regular
Hmm.
or what we would call sight words. And a lot of kids don't have them memorized.
Hmm.
Okay. So we can do some analysis of spelling mistakes in a kid's writing in those, but the challenge that we have is those are not phonetically regular. So there is another test out there, and the only battery that I know of right now that has this, and I'm going to back that up a little bit, is the Woodcock Johnson. So the Woodcock Johnson has a spelling of sounds.
Mm.
So that is one where you play an audio recording and they say a nonsense word and then you have to spell the nonsense word.
Hmm.
So if I said to Tiffany, "Oh, Kim, you come up with a good nonsense word. You're so much better
Uh,
than I am."
leg.
Like
How would you spell bleg?
Blague.
Oh, wow.
That's-
That's a wild one. Good for you.
Then, but that's hard for me. That's very like I wasn't learning that. So for me, it's
Yeah.
sounding it out, but kind of visually, that's difficult. So explain, can you expand on that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I would spell it BLEG.
Oh,
Okay, but the only reason I would do that is
yeah.
because I've had training in structured literacy.
There you go. Yeah. Mine was for plague. I heard plague, right? So mine's plague.
Oh,
So do you see
interesting.
that now I see the picture, so maybe I don't know exactly what we're teaching, right? Where I'm
Right.
only just memorizing what I've heard and seen and
You're pulling a word from the back of your
yep,
brain
yep,
instead of maybe listening to the but
exactly.
that's exactly what our kids do. That's interesting.
So this is where we also, so you can draw a parallel
Mm-hmm.
between kids that have memorized words that they spell and then giving them a nonsense word and they can't spell the nonsense word. So that
Mm-hmm.
lets us measure how well they have taken the decoding instruction to the encoding and their ability to spell words that they've never seen before.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now
Makes
I
sense.
I did this little caveat because there's one other measure that I know that does a little bit of this, and this is the Pfeiffer. And I'm not sure if it's on the Pfeiffer assessment of reading or the Pfeiffer assessment of writing, that they have something similar to that. But the entire idea behind it is we're asking kids to apply the tenets of structured literacy to a word that they've never seen before, and can they apply the principles, and do they actually
Yeah.
go in and break it into syllables and then check it to make sure it's correct. It's an
Right.
incredibly demanding task,
Mm.
and a lot of kids get really frustrated by it, and they get
Right.
to the point where they do what?
Yes.
Memorize?
Yes.
Yes.
Because Kim watches kids do that all the time.
So this is mapping sounds to letters. It's
Mhm.
mapping sounds and going to the back of your brain and finding the letters that go with those sounds. It's very difficult.
So, Tiffany, let's go back to the example. Were you picturing the word in your head when you went to go spell it?
I was.
And you know
And
how I
that's
know that?
because I was looking up.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's how I learned, which is, again, English was not my first language. So when I was learning through that, it was very difficult. So when I sounded it, I was like, well, plague, I think that's the word. And I was like, okay, that sounds like plague. All right, plague has I don't even know if I spelled plague right, now that I'm thinking about it. But yes, yes. So I was looking up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, this is super valuable for clinicians who are trying to assess what kids are learning and how well they're generalizing it. It is not commonly given because most clinicians who are assessing it are trying to limit the length of the battery that they're giving a kid.
Okay.
And unless they know the value of why you would assess it, they're like, why would I spend time on it? And it is not a big enough thing that test publishers are regularly putting it in.
But when what makes you smell the need to do this?
I typically will pull writing samples to show, like, I'll pull it out of a student's spontaneously generated writing and rarely give this specific subtest, because it is yet, when you see the length of tests I give, how many more can I give and how much more can I exhaust a kid? But if there is a clinician working with a kid that specifically says, I need to see this, I'm happy to do it. And I will do it in cases, if I'm trying to validate what's called an auditory processing disorder,
Oh.
where I'm wondering if a kid is hearing phonemes correctly. That's super valuable. Tiffany, do you know what an APD is, an auditory processing disorder?
Can you explain it in like one or two sentences?
Yeah, it's where the signal that comes into your ear, it's not a problem with the ear structure, but the signal that comes into the brain is not going through clearly, and so the individual isn't hearing sounds clearly. And so they will say things like Kim's favorite consonant versus continent, or ornament versus ornament.
Gotcha. The words that are not processing into there. Gotcha.
Yeah. And so it's a way to kind of pull that apart in more depth.
Gotcha. And that is the assessment, like the assessment that you do for APD.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
The assessment that you do for an auditory processing disorder is farther back upstream than that, where they're just listening, discriminating between phonemes, and but it's a way to check if, as we're doing instruction for kids, it's getting far enough downstream, meaning I can discriminate between sounds, I can discriminate when I'm decoding, can I discriminate when I'm encoding, which is a harder task. It's a way to see how far downstream you're getting all of that information and whether or not it's automatic. Does that
makes a lot of sense. That makes sense. Yes, and the viewers would make sense. That makes sense too as well. Yeah.
And that's why when we teach structured literacy, which is a whole other video, we do spelling instruction with it so that we see that the kid has got full transference, not just in can I hear the phonemes, can I repeat the phonemes, can I decode the phonemes, but now can I spell them? Gotcha. And this is where we will frequently see kids make errors in or well, not that. That's a bad example, but you get the idea, where kids are not discriminating the sounds and they can't represent them correctly.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense.
Questions or problems, let us know. Thanks.
Thank you.